How are
Hi,
you?
hi. Hello.
Hi.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you so much for your help. We were just waiting for people to arrive. I guess they're just a little late today, so.
Well, it looks like I had about 30 people open it from my group from the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
But hey, it could just be me, and it's not like I don't have 950,000 questions. I was actually trying to even get together with Michelle. So.
Oh, were you, Beth? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I wrote to you last week.
Oh, I never got it. So maybe you didn't send it to the right email address.
Wait, no, it was a Facebook message. Remember I asked?
Oh, yeah, on Facebook. That was last week. I don't even know what's going on.
Oh, please.
Did I reply?
Yeah, no, you were great. I asked if you would do one-on-one talking.
Oh, I remember one-on-one. Yes. I was thinking of of class stuff. Yes, of course I remember that. I was thinking, you wrote me to speak at a class? Sorry.
No, I know.
Got it. Yeah,
no,
of course I'll do that for sure. Yeah, sorry.
Let me ask you, Michelle, you were doing the thing with Mark on data on.
Yeah, we're doing we're doing it starting June 19th.
Okay.
So we're skipping June 3rd because it's a holiday weekend, and then we're doing the 4 weeks. So June 19th and then 3 more weeks in July, we're redoing the class. It was a great success, and the people who took it really walked away learning a lot. Hi there, Cindy. Nice to see you.
Hi,
yes. So it was great. So yeah, Rich. So I'll send you the info so you
That's
can let your
great,
people know. Yeah.
Absolutely, because I saw that Mark, in his newsletter, he mentioned that it was, going to be going on. So I knew that you were doing that course with him. So I just wanted to follow up. So Cindy, welcome. And Beth, welcome. So this is our guest today, my good friend, Michelle Weiss. And Michelle is a very successful Emmy Award-winning songwriter and producer. And I always love having her as a guest because she is so filled with wonderful, useful information for people who are really wanting to make a living as songwriters. She has done it for a long time, and she has seen it from a lot of perspectives, and her knowledge is very, very, very deep. So welcome, everyone. I guess, with you, Michelle, what's interesting is that you began your career, I believe, as a recording artist rather than just as a pure writer. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I was a performer, a performance artist, and a singer-songwriter and all that kind of stuff. Yes.
Okay, so you wrote all of your own material for yourself, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Well, now when I first started off, I played covers.
Okay.
In a couple of cover bands, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got into it by doing your own material for yourself as an artist. Okay.
Exactly. And in the cover bands, I try to slip in some of my own songs.
The original material.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the transition from that to being a songwriter producer in the sense of writing songs for other people, because that is, where your career trajectory took you at that point.
Yes. So I was always the producer.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to produce immediately. In the days of then, 1979, 1980, and after, writers always produced their own recordings. We all produced our own. We didn't even think twice about it. You didn't go and hire someone to produce your music. You might hire musicians, hire a studio, hire an engineer, but we were all there participating in the productions of our music. So I learned to produce very early on, which became my passion, because production is really even more of my passion than songwriting.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it always has been, actually. So I started recording my own songs, and I morphed into being a writer for others because I had an opportunity. And I always seized an opportunity. I most always say yes. Anytime I haven't said yes, it's really always not worked out well. So I try to say yes, and I always advise people, just say yes. Just show up and do it. If it's something out of your comfort zone, bring a partner. find someone to collaborate with, right? To do something, whatever it is. But if you say yes to any kind of opportunity, usually it leads to more things and does better. So that's basically what happened. I got an opportunity in 1987. The opportunity was presented to me for others, though it wasn't presented to me for myself. Someone I knew, the person who actually created films and slideshows with me for my performance art show, was directing a major film, a huge film, and it's called Tapeheads, and it starred John Cusack, Tim Robbins, and the sole recording artist, Sam Moore from Sam and Dave, and Junior Walker from Junior Walker and the All-Stars. They were actors and starred in the movie. My friend needed music. And so he needed music, he needed songs, soul songs for this movie. And he asked me, did I have any friends who wrote them? My music at the time was very alternative. It was like the equivalent of Bjork today. It made Billie Eilish seem like Celine Dion. My music was so outside and so avant-garde, and as was my performance art show. My whole trajectory was performance art. Like, if anyone's older here, like Laurie Anderson, like Kate Bush. And so when I got this request, I got together with my songwriting partner, who's still my songwriting partner. So it's, 41 years we've been songwriting partners. And I said, let's try to write something for this movie, and we won't say it's from us. And I'll submit it under a pseudonym, which is what I did. And I got the song in the movie, and Sam Moore and Junior Walker recorded the song. And that was my first outside cut, and also my first sync, which happened at the same time, which was very odd that we didn't call it sync back then. We called it a music placement.
Right.
And there was no term sync. And this happened for me in 1987 and changed my trajectory to, oh, wow, this is really cool. People pay you and you can have your songs recorded by other people. I had no clue at all. So in 1990, Sam Moore, for the same director, recorded a song of mine. And that particular song I got to produce. The first song was produced by Paul Jackson Jr., who's the most amazing. But the second one, I actually got the gig to produce it. And that was my first major project production. And also in 1990, I was working with Nile Rodgers from Chic and Get Lucky, the big hit recently.
Sure, oh yeah, major producer,
Yeah, major, and, writer, performer, and he was mentoring me and set me up with some young people, and we ended up having a big, huge hit with Misha Paris on Island Records, Eric B. and Rakim rapping on it. It was one of the first hip hop songs ever where there was singing and rapping on the same song. And it was a big hit, and I got a publishing deal. And so that was my trajectory. When I got the publishing deal, now I was like 11 years in trying to have any success. And I went, wow, this is pretty cool, right? I got a big, big check. I Xeroxed it and sent it to my father. Look, they pay you, because my father had been a great patron of my art.
Right.
And so, it changed my trajectory because I was tired of starving. And at that point I was 30. So I wasn't so young. I had been struggling a very long time with trying to have things happening. Finally, things were happening. And so that is what morphed me from being an artist. When I was signed at Island Music with Lionel Conway, who's the most amazing, when I was signed with Lionel, he did sign me as an artist. But he, at that point, saw me as an R&B writer and producer.
Okay.
So when he listened to my artist project of all the weird Bjork-like songs, he said to me, yes, when I think of you, I think of R&B, and he walked away. And that's basically what happened to my artist project until I was about 35, when somebody I was working with said to me, whatever happened to your artist project? Like, I had totally like left it, just
Right.
not even consciously, because I was so busy being a songwriter for other artists, for movies, for TV. I had gotten very in the loop, and because of that, I lost track of being an artist. And by then, I was not so young, and I have an artist project. I always have an artist project. There's always some project I'm working on for myself, or I'm now these days self-releasing songs, or in the old days getting
Right.
them placed in movies and TV and games and stuff. So I've never abandoned that, but I really let go of the pursuit of let's be a major label artist, because I had morphed. I just, like I said yes. And every time I said yes, it took me on a different path, and a path that's very suited for me, because I like to be alone, sitting outside in the sun, and probably would not have been good always in a venue in the dark. Like
Right.
when I was very young, I was on the road all the time with my band. I think now that wouldn't have really suited my later life. But
Did you
the
enjoy
nutshell.
that? Did you enjoy that when you were doing it? When you were doing the artist thing and performing all the time, was it something that you truly enjoyed, or no?
I loved it. It was amazing. I traveled on the road in a van with 5 guys and a drum set on the roof, and we went all over the place and made money and performed every night. And yes, it was magic when I did it. Really wonderful.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, I guess that it's interesting to hear you talk about that. You still have an artist project, but that your focus and orientation is much more toward, producing and writing songs, which has been your direction for a while. So, can you talk about some of the things that are important today for independent songwriter and producers such as yourself to really be aware of in terms of the marketplace today, as opposed to, let's say, maybe 5-10 years ago?
Right, because it's so cool that you said 5-10 years ago, because I was just talking to somebody about that in the Fairmont hot tub last night, that it has, for 30 years, nothing happened.
Right.
Right, Rich? Because you've been in the business and an A&R person and involved in so many aspects of the business. Really, nothing happened at all. Technology stayed the same.
Right.
Everything stayed the same. I mean, yeah, we went from cassettes to CDs.
Right.
But, nothing really changed in terms of publishing deals, record deals, artists being signed. It was all the same. Nobody self-released anything. It was, you could, but you'd be sending CDs in the mail, and it was very hard to do that market. In the last 10 years, everything has changed. And actually, I would say 20 years ago is where it started, because even in 2001, when I had a huge, big hit song with this group, Eden's Crush, released, and Nick Carter, and some other really big major label stuff, Napster came in. And that's the start of Napster that destroyed songwriting as we knew it.
Right.
And at that point, I morphed myself, saying, I'm just going to do placements, sync, because I'm not making any money with these artists, even though it's so prestigious, and so happy to have all these major label singles and artists, and all over the world I had them. But the money was drying up. So really, maybe 20 years ago was when we first saw the signs.
Yeah.
10 years ago, more signs, right? Streaming started.
Came in, yes.
Yes. What a disaster for us. Now, 5 years ago, now every single day, not a day goes by where there's not a new app, a new place where we have to register our songs, somebody, platform that's doing this and doing that, and telling us they can better do our admin, and they can better work on this for us, and every single day. And so this what has happened to our business as creators, songwriters, producers, publishers, that the amount of technology is staggering, and it is constantly changing and causing the trajectory to change, right?
Yes, and it's a bit
Yeah.
overwhelming too.
It's beyond overwhelming. I mean, Rich, we were discussing before Beth and Cindy came, that I teach a course. The first 20-week course I started in 2020 is obsolete.
Really?
If I watch
Wow.
the video replays, it is obsolete in just that time. The second
1 year.
one
Wow.
year, the second 20-week course, yes, very, very current. Because, and also there was a lot of new technology, and every week during class I'd come and discuss. But the class before, everything has changed in 1 year. So much. There's so many. Look, even the MLC wasn't even a vision, didn't exist. I mean, so many platforms, and it's overwhelming. And now I have a huge spreadsheet, which I teach in the metadata course, about all the places we have to register our songs. Oh my God. Lyric finds and music reports and MX and MDX and HFA and the MLC and our PROs and our sub-publishers, and on and on and on. It's like every single day they're telling me, oh, well, you didn't have your song registered at so-and-so, so you didn't get those micro pennies from so-and-so. Oh, okay, so now I have to register them there as well. It's really, the business has changed so much, and there's so much that we have to keep track of, keep up on, and make sure that we keep savvy. The first thing I do every morning is read the trades.
Yeah. Okay. Talk about that. Talk about the importance of that for you.
Well, it's really important, A, because I take care of my own administration and have self-published my own music since 1992, and B, because I speak like this, to people to give back. I teach my course, I have my students, so I'm constantly on a Zoom or in person giving back, or have private clients. And because of that, I have to keep up, because I cannot serve, right, your community, Rich, if I'm not aware of what happened and what's going on. So it's exhausting and daunting, and especially for someone like me, because I'm not tech savvy. I don't even use a smartphone. This is my happy little phone, which right. I don't even remember to charge most of the time. So I don't text. So I actually have low tech skills, but tons of tech knowledge. So it's funny, right? So I can teach you what to do, but don't ask me to demonstrate.
Right. No, but yeah. You know the important things to do. So
exactly.
You can tell somebody where they need to register everything.
Exactly.
And all the platforms. Yeah, it is interesting listening to you, because one of the things I realize is that, I've been in the business for, I think, about 42 years now. And the thing that I've noticed, like you said, is that change always came very slowly. We were able to absorb it all. When CDs came in, we were able to take in that technology. And the thing I've noticed is that ever since, I'd say probably the last 10 years specifically, the pace of the change is just like this. Like you said, you did this whole course and it's obsolete 12 months later. The whole thing of information just is irrelevant now, 12 months later. That's the world that I see us heading into now. Where and I don't think that's going to get better. I think technologically we're going to start seeing, because like you, I read the trades and I read voraciously, many, many, many different sources all the time, SCORE and all of these different things that I put together. And it's overwhelming just trying to keep up with the different stories and the different tech and the different opportunities that are out there and the different applications that are there for songwriters and for artists and so forth. And just the amount of money and time and energy that's being put into these things is really like, it's daunting. It's like a full-time job just doing that.
Oh yeah, it's a full-time job. And if you have a catalog that's as big as mine, it's like 10 people's full-time job to keep track of the admin. It's overwhelming. Yeah, this time of life, these it will not get changed. It's only going to every day get more and more and more difficult and busy. So we have to keep up and know what's going on. It's important. And even if we have someone administrating for us, we still need to know these things, because if we're relying on somebody else, they're always going to mess up. Nothing is ever going to be clean, and we're never going to get all our little pennies. And because it's so hard as creators to get our pennies, we want them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
whatever it is, however little it is, I want it. And so it all adds up, right? If somebody's paying me $100 here and $50 there and $200 there and $2 there, and by the end, now I have enough money to live. So I want my pennies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Let me ask you then, since you've been at this for the time period you have.
41 years.
41
I'm only
years.
1 year behind you. 41.
Yeah, I mean, we're I think the same age, and we came into this business pretty much around the same time. And I want to ask you on that notion, what are you seeing as the new sources of income, or some of those new pennies that have emerged in the last 5 or 10 years for songwriters in terms of getting paid?
Well, things like Peloton, Deezer, Equinox, all these gym kind of fitness things are very good income. Obviously, streaming is not very good income. Where else am I seeing good royalty income? Well, in-store retail. I like in-store retail very much, where they play music in stores and they pay you for that. That's been good.
Yeah.
Of course, sync fees for gaming have remained good, and trailers and ads. Sync fees for film and sync master fees for film and TV, not as good anymore, have definitely declined. Royalty rates from the PROs have plummeted.
Really?
So yes, not very good. The reason being that the royalties from your PROs are based on advertising dollars, and there's kind of the same amount of advertising dollars now being spread out among 4,000 networks and services. And so the PROs are negotiating with each service every year and have to lower rates because the advertising dollars are a little finite. So they used to be spread among 3 networks, and now they're spread among 4,000 or more. And so there's just, so because of that, you see the decline in the royalty rates, even not just for streaming, but for network TV and cable TV. It's all declining. And as for music, of course, nobody buys any music.
Right.
So
you don't need to anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't need to. So only radio money is still a good source. Outside of terrestrial radio, XM satellite is a nice source of income, as opposed to things like Spotify and Apple where you make nothing. So there are varying. For me, diversity is the key.
Okay.
I need to have my hands in all of these pots so that I can accumulate enough funds, like I was saying, to get some from here, some from there, some from there. In the end, okay, this is fine. But if I were just relying on streaming, then I would be working at McDonald's.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And that's a better bet. So you have to diversify.
Let me ask you, what is the international market like as far as, a businesswoman like you for music royalties over the last, has that situation improved at all in terms of making money outside the US, or no?
Well, I have always made money outside of the US, and I love doing business outside of the US, and I have friends who are A&R, publishers, label owners all over the world. And I always have done that with my business, which was a great thing to mention because it is a global world and a global business. And every single country, like I don't know if anybody watched Eurovision the other night. That was so fun.
Okay.
Every country has their own local artists.
Yeah.
So you could have an artist signed at Warner Brothers Italy that we don't even know about here, but you could get a song recorded by that major label artist in Italy and make significant income. You can get syncs all over the world. Now, again, with streaming, it is not as good because the streaming money is the same all over the world. It's terrible.
Okay.
But in the days past, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, I've made enormous money from local artists in their own countries and done a global business. And I still try to, and I still recommend it.
Did
Because
you develop those relationships overseas
Yes.
with like the major label A&R people in Italy and in,
Yes,
Belgium and in England and so forth?
I did.
Okay.
I developed them myself. I went to conferences. I went to meet them like 10 years in a row. I did all of that kind of stuff, and then was able to meet all those people and do business with all those people. Yes. And they're very welcoming of Americans because they love American music. It's kind of like we as Americans love Swedish music,
Right.
right? We want to work and deal with the Swedes, also the Danes and the Germans, who are also very, very up on new music and trends and savvy. And so it's the same vice versa. They love American music and Americans. And now I do a lot of work in Japan.
Really,
So,
talk about that, because Japan is an interesting market. Most people don't realize it's the second largest market for music in the world. Next to America, they spend more money on music than any other territory. And yet, very little music from Japan, that is Japanese, exports out of Japan to the United States, but yet they consume a staggering amount of music. Talk about the relationships and how you develop those in Japan, because that's
Sure.
interesting.
Yeah, so and in Japan, let's add Korea,
Yes.
because J-pop, K-pop will encompass that.
Okay.
Although Japanese royalties are fantastic, Korean royalties almost non-existent. So,
Oh, really? There's that big of a difference between the two?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's almost nothing from Korea. But kind of the same pool, and many artists cross over into both territories, whether they're Korean artists who are big in Japan or Japanese artists who are big in Korea. It's very much a pot in that kind of pot. And I started working in, I would say, maybe around 1990.
Okay.
So early on with artists in Japan, one especially being Tommy Page.
Yeah.
You remember Tommy Page, who had a #1 in the US. Tommy
Yes.
Page was loved in Japan. And he was signed to a record label called Pony Canyon.
Right.
And so starting in 1990, I started having releases in Japan on local labels. And then I had another one with this artist Blade, and another one with this artist called Christopher on Sony. And one just kept getting another. And I started, knowing the A&R people from the releases and the publishers, because there are so many publishers in Japan. Sorry, let's
It's okay.
close this up. So many publishers in Japan, and not in Korea, because again, Korea, the intellectual property situation is still not fabulous in terms of royalties, but
Okay.
in Japan, it's fabulous. And that's how, and then I did a lot of work with Avex, which is a big publishing company and record label in Japan.
They're here now. They're here in
Yeah,
Los Angeles
yeah, they're
now.
here now, yeah. Yeah, but I still deal with them in Japan and Universal. And, it's just the same as making acquaintances with A&R people. Like, I first met Rich when he was an A&R person at Arista, and
Right.
he was at a songwriters event called Cassette Roulette, and I brought a song to be reviewed, and that was in 1983. And I've
Wow.
known you ever since.
Ever
and we've
since
had
then, yeah.
yes. And so it's the same now. Now it's easier because now we can just get on the internet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Before you used to have to call people or mail something in, and yeah.
Yeah,
But
it was
that's important.
expensive and exhausting.
Well, no, I'm glad you're talking about this, because, so many times songwriters today, often I find, especially newer ones, don't think outside of their own territory. They don't think of developing a relationship with an artist in Japan who might record their songs, or Korea or England. They feel it's hard enough to
Right.
develop those relationships here, but there are plenty of opportunities, overseas.
Oh yeah,
for
I've
art.
had
Yeah.
songs released in France, Germany, and this is the local, not a major label release that just happened to be, of course, in other territories, but South Africa, France, Germany, Italy, Switzerland, Sweden, Denmark, the UK, Ireland, the Netherlands, Belgium, to Czech Republic, Hungary, all different artists in all their own countries. Spain,
Countries, yeah.
I left out Spain. I'm sure I've left out some others. So
Sure.
yeah, I saw my credit sheet if you look, but all over the world. And now the cool thing about Japan in terms of today is because streaming has hit pretty much everywhere in the world. And of course, as we were discussing, the royalties have disintegrated. Japan, the fans still buy CDs.
Yes.
Yes, and the reason it's so interesting. I was speaking with a bunch of Japanese people, asking them, okay, you live in a Tokyo apartment the size of a shoebox, and yet you buy all these CDs. I said, where do you put them? And they said to me, we don't, we throw them out. They said, we buy them to support the artist.
Wow.
Yes. And so
Wow.
what is a concept of that we don't have here? What mentality that they'll take one and they'll, digitize it into their iTunes, into their computer, but they toss all of it. And there might be they'll buy the special version because there'll be a release and there'll be 20 versions of it. There'll be special CD with bubble gum, and special CD with poster, and special CD with DVD accompaniment. And, there's one release has 40 different versions.
Right.
And they buy and spend their money on all of these versions, and maybe they'll keep the bubble gum and the poster, So this is so incredible that they want to support the creators, right? Who does that? Nobody does that. So that's why the Japanese market still has big sales, although streaming is venturing into the Japanese market.
Just
now.
starting to in the last year or so.
Yes,
they were one of
new.
the last holdouts. Germany as well. They were not big on streaming as a culture.
No, right.
But those are the only two.
Now,
they like their physical goods. Yeah.
Yeah, but now Germany is more like everywhere else. But you're absolutely correct. Even a year or two ago, Germany, they bought tons of physical product.
Right.
Yeah.
And the royalty is higher. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's beyond higher. It's the difference between, micro pennies and thousands of dollars. I mean, there's no comparison. And in Korea, the Korean artists like Blackpink and BTS, the big Korean artists are making money because they're selling. We're making royalties because they're selling here. But in terms of the royalties from Korea, almost never. They don't even show up. No,
they don't. So is the system not designed? Are they just not popular in Korea, or are the system isn't designed to give royalties?
They're just like China. They just don't really respect intellectual copyright very well. In Korea, they pay the musicians. Well, in Japan, they do the same thing. Actually, they pay the artists. Uh-huh. So the Korean artists, Japanese artists, if you see a band like BTS, those people are on salary. They're not getting royalty participation. They are on salary just like employees. Yes, and that's how. And of course, once they age out or get unpopular, they are dropped
replaced.
On ceremonies, completely replaced.
Right.
And so that's how that system works. Now, I have some friends who write for some of the major Korean companies. They're usually on salary. Their apartments are paid for. If they've been sent to Korea to work, they get, lodging, board, they get everything paid for. But in terms of them making further royalties, not from the sales in Japan, from the sales and the streams outside, of Korea, forgive me, they are in Japan, but outside of Korea, they might see that money. But from the Korean money, it's almost non-existent.
Wow, very interesting. So it's a whole different business structure there. I mean, they'll pay you a salary, they'll pay your apartment, but as far as if you had a massive hit record in Korea, you got your salary. It's kind of like work for hire.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So a group like BTS or Blackpink, where they're so popular outside of Korea, then there's loads of royalties for that. Yes.
Okay.
From outside of Korea, from the US royalties.
Okay, so I want to open this up to Beth and Cindy and get you guys to start, asking Michelle some questions. So things that you guys are wondering about and interested in.
Yeah. I have a couple questions. First
Go
of
ahead.
all, thank you for all this. I'm gonna leave at maybe about like almost maybe like at 10 of 4 because I have something I can't change. So please don't think I'm rude.
No problem.
All right, so how about something really menial like and boring like Michelle or both of you, how do you digest the trades? Do you sit in front of the computer and you subscribe to Billboard and Variety and Rolling Stone? I mean, is it a,
Yeah.
tell me what's going on with that?
Well, Rich can answer for him, but for myself, yeah, I subscribe to bunches of different trades every day that come every day. The bulletins, not the full paper magazines, but the daily bulletins that come from Variety and from the CMU Daily, Music Alley Daily. What's the A&R one, Rich, that you send? That one.
A&R Worldwide once a
Right,
week.
A&R
Yeah.
Worldwide, Think Tank, Deadline,
Music Business Worldwide.
Billboard Daily Bulletin, Music Business Worldwide. Right, there's just tons of them, and they show up in my inbox, and I read them. Usually when I wake up, there's a ton. And Variety, which Variety Daily is really amazing. But you have to be careful because they send hundreds a day. So you spend a lot of the day deleting from the headlines the ones you don't apply to you. But yeah.
And, if you want, Beth, I will send you, I have a document that lists all of the trades, and 90% of them, maybe more, are free. You just need to subscribe and they will come into your inbox every day. Like Michelle is saying, you don't have to go to them. And you can sign up for the RS feeds and it will come to you. If you are interested in this, and just sign up with your email. I'll send you the document.
That's good because you call them together in the one that's called Score. Is that right?
No, what I do, Score is a weekly, I send that out to 108,000 people. That's how many people are on the list.
That's so cool, Rich.
Worldwide, okay? And what that is I compile from like 40 different sources every week the top 12 music business stories. And my criteria for that, I don't want to do a story that's been in every publication. You don't need to hear that MGM was bought by Amazon in Score. You don't.
Right.
You know why? Because you've heard it from 75 other sources today. You don't need to hear that from me. So what I focus on are the stories that you haven't heard, the stories that are more deep dive, that are things that are really relevant to you, that you may not have gotten from every other trade publication. That's what I focus on with Score. And I do the top 12 every week. And I put that together called Score and I send that out.
And I love
it's become
that.
It's become very, very big. Very popular. People love that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I appreciate that because, you've called them, you've
curated them. Yeah.
I mean, I can go down a rabbit hole on like why people like Bob Dylan are selling their catalogs and get into some existential like why are we even doing this if in the end result it's bought out, but So your kind of articles that aren't, MGM bought Amazon or Amazon bought MGM, those, so that's good. And then the other question I have is, listen, Michelle, you always say things that are thought provoking and they get me off on another tangent when I'm listening to you. So today, it's very interesting because I sort of the opposite. Today you said that you were on the path of being your own artist, and then you got the thing that opened up for you was providing content or music or production for other things. And okay, and so then I know. And then you said that your real passion ultimately is production more than songwriting and more than as an artist. So which I think mates really well with the world of sync and placement and following random applications for songs because you're hearing, oh, that's right, I'm on Peloton, blah, 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 blah. What if you're more my kind of person, you've spent your entire life, every time I come to that fork, I stay the one who's really the artist. And so I have a team of creatives around me. The problem that I think I've asked you this before, I think I already know the answer, but I have to keep asking it because it's my existential quest. If you are on the creative side and you stay as the artist and you surround yourself with all the creatives you need, you end up where you're always doing all of the admin work for everybody because no matter what, they're just not as admin head as it needs to be. And I know last time I asked you this a million times ago, you were like, yeah, so you just do it. Do you still hold to that?
Yeah, you just do it. If it's necessary for your business, then you do it. If there's something that doesn't matter for your world and you've mentored them and told them to do these things and they still don't, then you let it go. But if it matters in your world that they need to register the song because you're pitching it to a music library that requires that they register it, or a music supervisor who's going to go to their PRO and take a look, then you have to make them register it. And if, again, they don't do it and they're innate and they can't do it, then you have to do it for them because it's not helping you and your business. But if it's not getting, like if they don't join the MLC and I've told them 10 times to do it, that's their problem. That doesn't affect me and my co-write with them. And if they don't want to do it, then that's their problem.
Well, I definitely have changed my work model with collaborators where like one sentence into the song, we've got a split sheet and agreement that what it's going to be.
That's too late, Beth. Yeah. That's too late. You have to do that before you write and get in the room. Right. I do all of that before anyone comes into my room because if there's something that they disagree with, then I don't even have them over. Yeah. I mean, you're doing it at that point. It's too late.
It's true. Yeah. It's true because, and then, yeah, I mean, along those same lines, in the world of, sometimes you can, and sometimes you're going to do all the work, but you just want the permission in advance to go ahead and do all the work. You want the one
I make them agree with all of that and before we write. So if you and I are going to write together, I'm going to send you all this paperwork and I'm going to say, this is what you have to agree to, Beth, to get in my door.
Right.
And if you have problems with something, I respect that. But then you're not going to get in my door. And that's just
some kind the same.
The same with the musicians. With the musicians and the singers up front, I'm telling them, I have this much money and you have to sign work for hire paperwork. I'm telling them up front.
So you're clear, it's taken care of up front, there's no question. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to pay you X amount at the end of the session by a PayPal or a check, whatever you want, and you're going to have to sign this document. And it's work for hire, and that's it. And again, if they're not interested in it, then I respect them completely. But then they're not working with me because this is what is required. But if I wait until later, I might end up with a guitar part that I can't use, and I might have a song co-written with a difficult songwriter who I should have taken care of that first before we wrote even a line, because they're not going to be compliant, and that makes life too difficult.
Yeah, no, and it makes it's difficult. It's also painful, and no matter how much I back it up to the beginning of the relationship, it's actually got to be, you're saying it really needs to be obvious. It's obvious, but it needs to be a prerequisite, and that way you're not sitting there feeling, encumbered by anything that you're working on. That life is hard enough to get, but you don't have to worry. I wouldn't have to worry about my autonomy within a musical relationship, because if I am going to do all the business, then I don't need to be feeling hamstrung.
Exactly. And you need to make sure, as part of your discussion, do they have a publishing company?
Yeah, right.
If they don't have a publishing company, I'm not writing with them, because that's not professional, and it might take them 20 years to get one. The music supervisors won't work with the songs, and the libraries won't take them, and on and on. And it's these are things that need to be known up front.
But here's the interesting thing. I'm going to have to go in a second, and this is really important to me. I was used to this crisis or this traffic jam, like in the last year or 6 months. I was used to it with new people, you know what I mean? People that were not pros. And that's one type of problem where you teach them, and then if they're not going to do it, there's no point. Come on board with the ability to do blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, a separate problem are people that are very professional in the sense that, well, they're established artists and it's been taken care of for them, or they're on the other end of the spectrum where they're not hungry, they're not trying, they're not motivated, they're really talented, they have a track record, but it's like, wait, I have to do what now in order to do this project with you? So I've also been struggling with the ego and the experience level of very seasoned people. They're the other end of the spectrum. Why should I have to do this? No, they don't know what's happened in the last 10 years, as you were saying, Michelle. They're living in 1972, where artists were just embraced and picked up and nurtured. So however you look at it, there's no time for the heartbreak of this is going to be a pain in the neck. There's no time for it anymore. Because of those 90 billion outlets that are available to us, what are we gonna, my big existential question for the last year has been, how am I gonna spend my waking hours today? I teach, I perform, I have a child, you know, all that stuff. Okay, what's my music time gonna be about? And it shouldn't be chasing, cajoling, encouraging, and asking for paperwork from people. It should be reading over the 90 gajillion things that you're sending, Rich, and the trades, and figuring out which product is being worked on in which market that might be interested in the music. And I think this is great. I'm really glad that we did this today. It may be obvious, but it's funny how you can relearn something over and over, you know, you can spiral in it. I'm better, but I keep getting frustrated with the level of like, wait, why am I having this conversation with you? You're 80 and I shouldn't be having it with you. Why am I having this with you? You're 18 and you don't know yet, and everything in between. So I'm sorry to go on and on, but it's important. It's important how we spend our time, don't you think? Our time.
Of course, but this is a big part of time that's spent always, because we're always meeting people who have very little education. That's why we do stuff like this, and that's why Rich is here to teach, so that we all learn stuff. And yeah, but this is the normal thing that has to be taken care of to work with other people to ensure that our business is protected.
And I do want to say something about that, because, you know, it's something that I've dealt with my whole career, but I feel that and I'm sure you'll agree with this, Michelle, it's kind of an unspoken today in the 21st century, in 2021, the idea that you want to be in this business and you don't know what you're supposed to do, I'm sorry, that doesn't fly anymore. And you know why? Because all of this information is available to you. You don't need $500 a year to subscribe to Billboard, which is the only way you could get that information like 30 years ago. You don't even need to be dressed. You could be sitting naked in front of your computer and it will come to you.
Or in a bathing suit.
Or in a bathing suit, getting sun. If you can't be bothered to learn that on your own, it's like that era that you're thinking of has gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So this is why I'm always encouraging artists that you must learn. That era where all those systems existed to support you and to help you, and tour support and money, it doesn't exist anymore. It would be like me saying, Michelle, get off of that computer right now and back on that typewriter. It's like we don't live in that era anymore. That era is gone. It doesn't exist.
It's actually like heartbreaking a little bit, because I think this characteristic of, I happen to attract a lot of collaborators that are like that.
Yeah.
I guess I have energy and I'm perky and I'm in there kind of fighting in the good fight, and I don't know. And I used to be afraid of, here it comes, you know, I call them ostriches. I'm a genius, but I live under here. I'm going to stick my head up. No. I'm going to write with you. I'm going to create really special content. You're talking about moody stuff with this sort of epic wisdom of these singer-songwriters that I'm lucky enough to work with, that have been around forever, that have the wisdom of the rings around the tree. And yet the stuff sits in like a fruit bowl, frozen. So anyway, I'm sorry to be
Yeah,
so passionate.
Beth, let's ask Cindy if she has any
Yeah.
questions, because she hasn't had a second.
Cindy.
Yes, I actually do have a question about like the streaming royalties, because Michelle, you mentioned that the streaming is basically nobody makes money, but how come there's still a lot of people putting music on like streaming? And I know a lot of like YouTuber or these influencers do make a lot of money from streaming.
Well, they don't make a lot of money from streaming, but they get a lot of exposure, and that's their mission. Their mission is to have their music heard, to get themselves out there, to be someone you know. And so, but no, they're not making a lot of money. YouTube, I make a more money than streaming. There is a little bit more, but it's still nothing compared to what it used to be like to have music on an album and have the album sell, or a single that was released and have that single sell actually downloads or physical sales on a CD. So but that's why it's all exposure. Look, I just created an album of Christmas music for my students, where they all supplied a song, a compilation, and I'm putting it out on TuneCore for Apple and Spotify and everywhere. They won't make any money, but they want it. They want it to be exposed. Now, when I pitch it for music supervisors, which is the main mission of it, that will hopefully bring some income with some synchronizations. But in terms of the other, it's just to have it out there and have exposure. Maybe if you are going to be the artist. Are you an artist, Cindy?
Oh, I'm not.
What do you do?
I just finished the live music event production.
Oh, nice.
At MI. So I know some basic like song production, audio engineer stuff, and then I do a lot of events. Coordinate
so
events.
That's more of your thing. So that's great. Well, then if you're having an event and somebody is a successful YouTuber or successful on TikTok or successful on Spotify, then you want to have them on your event. And when they're on your event, they could make money from selling tickets and merchandise, especially because they're going to sell merch at the event. And this is ways for them to make money. You know what I mean? Like if you look at Snoop Dogg, he does hair cream commercials. He's not making money from his music anymore, but he's making money from his brand. And so it's all about branding. And so having our music out there on Spotify is branding us,
Yes.
right? So that's how we start trying to cross-collateralize our marketing and our income. But in terms of making actual dollars, streaming is not doing that. YouTube is not doing that. None of that is doing that. You can make a little money on XM satellite. That's a place where there's actually some money on XM radio and terrestrial radio still. I mean, if you have music out on real radio stations, FM radio stations, and your PROs are sending you royalties, you're actually making money like you used to 30 years ago. That money is still available, but it's hard to get your music on those platforms if you're not a major label artist. So everything is for building and marketing yourself.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you mentioned that. I remember an interview with Irving Azoff, who's one of the very big artist managers in the business. And he addressed this very issue. He said a very interesting thing. He said, you know, with some of my biggest clients today, he said, Christina Aguilera, for example, was a client of his. He said, and I was surprised he admitted this. He said, she only makes 6% of her income on a yearly basis comes from recorded music, because she's not a writer. She's a performer, and she's like one of the big, you know, major label artists, but she's making her money, like Michelle said, from touring, from the merchandise at the shows, from ancillary income, from endorsements, from other kinds of sources of the brand. Because she's Christina Aguilera, all of those things will come into play. Rather than she sold, you know, millions of albums. Nobody sells millions of albums. And, you know, even the big giant people like the Beyoncés or the Taylor Swifts, the relative amount of money they make from streaming or from their recorded music is small compared to the income that they make from every other area of their brand, of their career. it just is. It's very interesting in that regard. So that's why,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly.
So does that kind of answer the question, Cindy? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yeah. And so is that how like music business in Korea, in China, they make music? Because you said they pretty much can't get any royalties from the music. So they have to do a lot of like branding, like what you just said, touring,
Well, in
endorsement.
Korea and Japan and in China, the artists are paid. So they're not
They're paid
making
salary.
royalties, they're paid a salary.
Oh, they're paid
And
salary?
yeah, I
Yeah.
mentioned that. Yeah, that's what we were
Yeah, they're
discussing.
paid salary.
Maybe it wasn't clear. So
Not
they're paid
royalty.
salary, exactly. And then they're required to show up at the concerts, required to do a TV interview, required. That's all part of their contract with their job. They're paid salary.
Oh,
Yes.
I see.
And
Oh,
so they may go on tour for 400 concerts a year or 300 concerts a year, but they're going to get paid the same salary. Their salary, they're like an employee. Like if you're teach at the Los Angeles School District, they're just an employee required to do XXX. They're required to do these things as part of their job. So their job is to be a personality, but they're not making extra money for these things.
Sorry, bye-bye.
Bye, Beth.
Take care. Bye-bye, Beth.
Thank you, sorry, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye, Cindy.
So-
Bye-bye. Nice to meet you, everybody. Nice to meet you, Cindy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So I hope that makes sense, Cindy. That's how, their system is based on that. Now, I would say most likely a group like BTS has a lot of clout. And probably now they can have individual managers saying, yeah, we're on salary, but hey, we're BTS and we're bringing you all this money. And probably their companies are giving them extra bonuses and extra money, maybe profit sharing, maybe royalty percentage, maybe something, because they have become so,
Reached, yeah.
they've just
certain
reached the
level. Yeah.
stratosphere, right, of international artistry and success. But for most artists, because in Japan, Korea, China, there are hundreds of local acts like BTS that exist, but we don't know them here. Like those artists are on salary completely.
wow.
It's interesting too, Cindy, is that one of the things that I've noticed, and a lot has been written about this, is that artists in Asia, in the Philippines, in Japan, in China, you see there's a different element in terms of the way that they are viewed culturally, where it's very common to see a very popular music artist be on television doing a role in a TV show. It's very common to see them advertising a pocketbook or a dress or something like that. It's also very common within certain Asian cultures, musically speaking, to tip an artist. And that's something that we don't have here in the United States, where, and I think it's interesting because, they're now I just saw a thing where it's either Spotify or one of them is developing a tipping kind of thing where if you love an artist, you can tip them, with like $1 or $2. And, you have somebody who has 50,000, 100,000 people giving 50 cents or $1, it can add up.
Well, Melissa Etheridge did that on her daily live streams, and she
Yes.
was making like 50 to 100,000 a day.
Yes.
And most artists now, like Dave Koz does it all the time. My artist Jonathan Butler, all of them do live concerts and have tip jars.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
that's really wonderful for them. As a way, especially during COVID, for them to make some money.
Because they have a significant base of people that will do that. Melissa charged, I think it was like $50 a month to do those live streams where she would perform. I think it was like 3 or 4 nights a week. Erykah Badu was doing that with the full band. She first started off doing it, Cindy, where she would do a live stream and you could watch it for $1. That was the very first one that she did. And she got about 2,000 people. And they gave her $2,000 and she gave the money to the band. The next one she did, it was a full set, an hour and a half long. She charged, I think, either $5 or $10 So she would able to make, some more money because there was no ability for her to make money on tour, but she had a setup, in her home where her band and everybody could come and they could do a full show and you could then pay money to see that. But it's interesting what Michelle's saying because it is something you must cultivate and you have to be willing to deliver that. You have to be willing to put on the full show for those people who are paying for that. So it is a great way. I will say this about this because it's something I very strongly believe and I've been watching very closely about this subject. I believe that when COVID is gone, when we have no more concerns with it, live streaming will be here to stay. I don't think this is something that's just going to go the way, like when COVID goes, we're all going to go back to live shows and no one's ever going to live stream again. I don't believe that. I believe that artists have now found a way to make money on live streams and reach an audience of theirs that will pay. Maybe they won't pay $50 to see a show, but they'll pay $5. They'll pay $5 or $10, and you get enough of those people. That's an additional 25, 50 grand or whatever it is per show that you weren't making.
Right, and it's the same with Zooms like this, like classes being taught over Zoom. It's not going to go away because it's convenient,
Yes,
right? And
that's
because
right.
in my class, I had students from Turkey, Germany, the UK, Ireland. I have students, New Zealand, Australia. I have students from all over the world. They can't come to my class if it's in person.
Right.
So I think all of this will continue on. Exactly.
Absolutely. What other questions did you have, Cindy? What other things did you want to know?
Yes, actually, I do want to know, like, when you first started collaborating with friends, not for the business, just writing for fun, do you still do split sheet? Because me and a few friends were thinking maybe this summer we can do something together, but it's probably for church, for nonprofit. So I'm not sure if we should do that.
I'm a professional. Everything I do revolves around being a professional, and it always has since I started out. And yes, you should always have a split sheet because you never know what's going to happen with this music. You never know what's going to be income earning, especially if it's for a church project or something like that. And you need to have a split sheet. And that should be the first thing you discuss before, as I was saying to Beth, before you write. So you shouldn't even get into that room and write until you've all via email agreed and filled out that split sheet. Because if not, it's going to come back to haunt you. This is not a good thing. Now, of course, in 40 years ago, we never had split sheets. Nobody did this. And it was a very less litigious world. But now people are crazy. And so you have got to have a split sheet. And it's very simple, a split sheet. It's not anything bad. All it does is list the names of the writers, the publishers of the writers, their numbers, their IPI numbers, the signed numbers from their PROs, what they contributed, music and lyrics, their social security numbers, things of that nature. It's very simple. It takes 5 minutes to fill out a split sheet. So you should definitely do it, and they should definitely be equal splits because, you just want it to be all nice and friendly and even. So you shouldn't be thinking, well, this person has been a songwriter longer, so they're getting a bigger percentage, or this person has more financial success. No, just everybody gets the same piece. Fill out a split sheet. Yeah, it's really important. And what else did you want to know?
I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. Do you still produce your own music now? Like you do?
Oh yeah, I produce all my own music, and all the music that when I work with other artists, I produce it as well. Yes. I have a studio. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
You said something before which I want to address because it goes right to the heart of Cindy's question, is that you said the last time we were together, something I never forgot. You said you spend a lot of time listening to contemporary hit songs and their production so that you can learn from that. Can you talk about the things that you pick up as a producer in terms of listening, different things that you may have gotten that maybe years ago that wasn't really a reality?
Well, years ago, it was a reality to listen. You just had to buy the albums. So it's less expensive now and quicker to just go to YouTube and listen to something. But of course, like you too, I'm sure, years ago had a massive record collection. And I had a huge record collection, and every penny that I made, I ran to the record store to buy the newest record of Crosby, Stills and Nash, or Carole King, or whoever, Joni Mitchell, whoever was putting out music back then. And so it's the same now, except now I just go to YouTube, or there's a paper I subscribe to every day, the CMU Daily, which I really love because every day they have some new release information. And I just click on the link and hear, oh, Jay-Z released a new song today. Cool, let me listen. And so I'm listening, and I'm listening to what tempos are they working in? What instrumentation? What drum beats? What vocals are they doing? Are there a lot of background vocals? Are there not too many background vocals? Are there any guitars? Because guitars have become passe, but then we have the #1 song of the week, Good For You, with Olivia Rodrigo. That's a rocky, punky song, like in the 80s.
Yeah.
So we have lots of guitars. So how happy is that? So I'm listening for all the instrumentation, the sound effects. What kind of effects are on the vocal? Is that still popular? Oh wow, they use that kind of radio thing. That's so passe, but okay, it sounds cool on this. All right, so that's still viable to do that. And what is the mix like? Is it drum heavy? Is it vocal heavy? How are the instruments mixed together? How does the vocal sit in? Is the vocal buried? Is the vocal loud? Yeah, I'm listening for everything to understand. And I'm learning because maybe I'm working on a song and I'm having trouble with one aspect of maybe the synth part. And I'm listening to many, many songs going, what did they do on the synths? What did they do? Well, finally, that is a really cool thing. That's a cool concept. Let me try to incorporate that without stealing it. But let me think about that in terms of my production. So we're all borrowing from each other, right? Songwriters, producers, arrangers, we're all borrowing. Artists, singers, all borrowing from each other. And guitar players study other guitar players for decades, becoming amazing performers and musicians. So we're all, helping I see it as helping each other become, learn new things.
I wanted to ask you, as you were speaking about this, I was realizing, one of the things that I read a lot of is that younger people today, just culturally, are not taking up instruments or learning an instrument to the same degree that they were 20 years ago. They're not taking up guitar or drums or keyboards at the way that they were before. And I wonder if you are, you're on the front lines of this, Michelle. You are dealing with musicians and making records on the front lines of this and have for the last several years. Do you see young musicians, or a lot of them coming in, or are the musicians that you're working with actual people who play an instrument on your records? Are they of like a certain age and older?
Well, the musicians that are playing on my records, if they're not someone I wrote with who happens to be new and young and maybe playing on their own music, are my stable of session people. So they're of all ages, but I've been working with some of them for decades. So they're still the ones that I go to because they're comfortable and I know that they're fabulous and we work well together. But in terms of new artists and new musicians, there are tons. And so I see tons of young people learning instruments.
Okay.
So many of my friends give lessons, and tons of people, especially during COVID, where it was massive amounts of people taking lessons. In my houses, there are 5 schools. So there's an elementary school, a middle school, a church school, there's Santa Monica College. There's just 5 schools all around my block. I see countless students carrying instruments. Yesterday, I saw someone carrying a tuba. I mean, they're carrying violins and violas and, flutes, and they're carrying instrument cases and guitars, and they're learning in bands in school. And so, no, I see enormous amounts of people learning instruments, wanting to be musicians, and and doing just like we did when we were younger and did that in school and
Okay.
private lessons. So yes, I see lots of it, which is very happy, you know, to see the little musicians carrying their instruments.
That's great to hear. That's great
Yeah.
to hear.
Mhm.
Okay, Cindy, what about some final questions for Michelle before we let her go? What other things would you like to know?
No, I think I'm good. I'm just I think I'm really inspired from what she shared, and especially how you listen to the hit music. Because I'm learning how to mix songs. I do live streaming mixing every Sunday at church. Like we have full
That's
bands.
great.
Yeah, so I'm still trying to find a balance, and it's very different when you mix live and mix in, and now I'm mixing in Logic.
Yeah, it's totally. My husband is a very famous producer and recording engineer, and he started out live. He started out doing live mixing in venues, just like you are. And he would absolutely agree with you. It's very difficult when you're mixing live. It's very different, like just like you're saying, than mixing in or recording in the studio. It is totally different. So it's great that you're learning both, because both skills are so important and so valuable. So I'm proud of you, especially as a
Thank you.
woman, to be doing that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And we're all always learning, right? You know, even my husband is learning. If I bring him something and it's some kind of new thing that I want in relation to the mix, you know, we all have to keep learning. It's wonderful what you're doing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Thank you. And thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it very much. It was great seeing you and great getting to catch up. And I always enjoy our conversations so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I enjoyed this very much because you asked me questions that nobody asks me.
Oh, okay.
And so that was really fun for me, because I
Well,
usually
thank
get
you.
asked the same questions all the time. And pretty much you hit on things that no one ever asks me. And I love that. It was very
great.
nice. Yeah,
thank you.
You're the best, Rich. Cindy, you are in good hands. Rich is amazing. He is
Thank you so
a
much.
legend, a legend. Yes,
Oh,
and
God.
buy his directories. His directories are the Bibles of the business. Yes,
Thank you.
I couldn't work without them. So you're welcome. Thank you, dear Rich.
Thank you.
And be well, Cindy. And we will see you soon.
Okay, thank you so much. Cindy, I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.